I had not been here long before someone approached me and said, "We think you're a leader," and I thought that means I was bossy. I took that as meaning I was bossy, which I wasn't offended by, because I know who I am, and I'm a little bossy. I can be. So he said, "Would you consider being senior warden?" I did not come from the Episcopal faith, so I had to learn all this new language. So I said, "Well, tell me what that involves." So he did. He told me, and that was John Sands. I talked to Ron about it, and he said, "Well, why not? You've led other things before. Why not that?" I said, "Okay, I'll do it." And so I did it, and it was a great time. We weren't even in this building yet. We were just building it, or just dreaming about it. That's what we were doing, dreaming about it. So we had a lot of in-depth discussions about what this space should be and what it should serve at, and how we could live in it, not just on Sunday mornings, but on Tuesday nights, on Thursday nights, on whatever nights we wanted to use it. And so it was a really enriching experience for me. So Ron and I, my late husband, decided that the word giving was not entirely appropriate for what we were doing. We wanted to use the word sharing, that we were sharing our gifts with the church, because sharing means that you receive something in return, is the way we saw it. And we thought our boys, our grandchildren, all of us have gone here. We're not raised here, but have attended church here. And we thought the sharing was so important, much more important than just giving a bunch of money. If you share your wealth, if you share your feelings, if you share your space, that's, to us, it was more important than just writing a check, which we can do too, but we chose, I think the word sharing is more appropriate. One thing that stands out to me in terms of fundraising was when I first came on the vestry, this building did not exist, this church did not. I mean, we met in the little, we call that chapel, in the chapel, and it was jam-packed every Sunday. We knew we needed more space, and that was not even in question. We didn't even discuss that. But once we started talking about this space, we had to create it. We had to decide what it was for, who it was going to accommodate, and how much it was going to cost, and what we needed to do, blah, 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 all that stuff. So when we finally got busy, we finally decided to build a sanctuary, a real sanctuary, not a chapel, but a real sanctuary. But we had to look toward the future. Nobody could predict how many people were going to end up here. That was impossible. So we went full force planning this place, and some of our discussions were hilarious. I mean, they were good discussions, but you have to get through all that. So the thing that just blew me away in terms of fundraising was that before we moved into this sanctuary, we had what they called a silent auction, and that's exactly what it was. Somebody, wasn't me, someone else, laid out on a couple of long tables in front of the chairs, sheets of paper. These are things we're going to need to open this church, to start this church. And then you were asked to donate or commit to something, to funding something. And so there were all kinds of descriptions, chalices and all kinds of stuff. And so then there were lists that you could add your name to. And if you put your name on it, you were going to buy it for the church. That was just the way it went. So that to me was such a moment. I thought, how clever, how smart to do that. Instead of going into people's homes and saying, "Would you donate $5,000 to buy this?" Blah. That just seems sort of crass to me. But fundraising doesn't have to be crass. It needs to be creative. And that's the word I've always used about fundraising. The more creative it is, the more likely people are going to respond positively. Now, they're not going to give more money necessarily, but they're going to be more engaged in the process. We had a lot of discussion about that. How was building a new worship place going to change us? We talked a lot about that at vestry. And the things we not argued about, had conversation about in those meetings were hilarious. But we knew that space out there, the worship space, was going to also be used for entertainment. We knew that. You just can't have a space that big just for worship. So when we had group dinners and that kind of things, we needed a place to have them. And we had this great kitchen. So, we had to talk through all that. How much of our time is going to be spent in worship? How much of our time is going to be spent in celebration of something? And we just kind of worked it out. I mean, there was no rule to play by. There wasn't a rule book. We just worked it out. And it worked. It has worked. There was even discussion, I'll never forget this. I sat in this vestry meeting thinking, what in the are they talking about? Somebody wanted, when we're having an entertainment thing in the church, wanted to put some kind of something to block off the altar, like a big drape or something, curtain, something. And everybody said, why? Because this is a sacred space. We're going to be entertained. We're not participating in sacred activities. I said, yes, we are. We're getting to know each other. That's pretty sacred. That's pretty important to have time to talk to people that you just normally say good morning to. And they said, oh gosh, we didn't think about that. So, it just kind of worked out. It just worked. It's a great space. It's a great space. I think the whole point of fundraising, and people usually shy away from that, which I totally understand, is creativity. I think being creative, I'll give you an example in just a minute, being creative catches people's attention, and it makes them think about what they'd like to do. And so at one point, when I was senior warden, I decided, a group of people I pulled together, decided to do a match kind of thing. So if you give so much money, we'll match it with whatever. And so it worked really well. And I'll never forget standing out on the little porch there. It was Palm Sunday. And two of our parishioners, you wouldn't know them, doesn't matter, two women who were partners, came up to me and they said, put your hand out. I said, okay. And they put something in my hand. It was paper, folded paper. And she said, now, don't look at it yet. I said, okay, I won't look at it, Lou. I won't look at it. So she said, I'm serious. Don't go into church and open that piece of paper. I said, okay. It's burned a hole in my hand, but okay. So we had talked about a pledging. We had talked about a competition. If you can do better than the person sitting next to you, go for it. So I opened my hand finally when I got into church. It was a check, an enormous check, which just made me feel so good. I mean, I wasn't crazy about the money. It was the point. It was the point that they trusted me to take that piece of paper and give it to the church, which of course I did right away. But I mean, it's little things like that people, when we set kind of a goal, and we made a little bit of a contest, the goal was, well, of course, we thought, oh, God, could we ever raise that much money? And we did in excess of our goal. We never fell short of our goal, ever. And of course, there were people here like Ellen Houghton who made that happen too. It's important, not necessarily just because of the money, but because of the relationships it builds. I think that process brings people together. I would hope, that's what my hope would be, is that the process of giving, sharing, which I prefer, brings people together. And then you hear their stories. People's stories to me are so fascinating, and they make you real to me. And then I remember you because I remember your story. So I can see you in another setting in Bilo or some grocery store. I can say, well, tell me more about your granddaughter, whatever, because I've heard about her. So to me, it creates a more unified group of people, and of people who just don't have in common coming to church every Sunday morning at Holy Cross. They connect as people, and we are people. We may be all different kinds of people, different, all kinds of differences. But we come together on Sunday mornings to worship together as one. And I think that's an important message for us to give out. And to be creative in how we ask for money. I mean, to me, that's an awkward thing. So that's the other key, is that people who are asking for money need to be the leaders and need to be respected. Because when you open your mouth to ask for money, people need to believe in you. You're not a shyster. You're not someone who's just doing it for pleasure. There's nothing pleasurable about that.